Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Friends, we had a lot to say about The Last Jedi. You had a lot to say about The Last Jedi. And so we are back with The Last Jedi Part 2. We've got some great listener feedback that we're going to discuss. We've got some topics we wanted to keep talking about. We've got one of my co-hosts, Aaron, looking very confused and not sure what's going on. And one of them, Alex, looking like he's just ready to launch into all the deep thoughts he's had for many, many years. Aaron, why don't you start us off?
So I watched Solo this week. I forgot that we canceled our recording last week.
Well, don't you worry. We'll talk about Solo next
I'm
time.
super prepared for that next week.
See, Solo is going to get one episode, but Last Jedi not being Solo
doesn't
gets a
even need
duo.
one episode. Okay.
Okay.
So it gets one episode. I'm sorry.
So
Okay, for the listeners,
y'all start talking. I'm gonna readjust my mind.
for the listeners who haven't run away yet, thank you so much. We're really excited about continuing this conversation. We've also got some bonus content for the members. Of course, we are going back to reading chapters out of From a Certain Point of View, A New Hope. We're very sorry that a lot of other things have come up for us to talk about in bonus content, but we are going to go back to that and we're going to stay laser focused on that. I'm, of course, lying. Other things will come up, but we're going to try and make sure we're doing those at least 3 out of every 4 episodes so we can keep you going through that book and start getting into some of the next books. Now, for those of you who are wondering what in the world is this bonus content you're talking about, if you become a member, you get bonus content on not only this, but also the Superhero Ethics podcast. Both of them are part of the Ethical Panda family of podcasts, which you can find all on truestory.fm, or you can go to theethicalpanda.com, and there you'll find information about show notes, links to all previous episodes, how to find all of our different guests and awesome co-creators and co-hosts like Aaron's awesome cosplay and things like that. Most importantly, you can find a link to the membership, $5 a month, $55 a year, less than I don't know what the hell coffee thing costs these days, but probably less than like a large venti, whatever. It's you get great content, you get bonus episodes like our book club, and you just get to know that you're helping to keep the lights on, helping to do everything you can to support the work we're doing, and that we can keep giving great content to you. So please think about becoming a member. Hopefully, Aaron's brain has had a chance to shut down and reload. So I'm going to start us off with our first piece of listener our first bit of listener feedback, because we got 2 great emails actually already. The first one is
Sway.
from Darth Hobbit.
Oh, Sway.
I know. I love these names people have. Loved your coverage of The Last Jedi and that you all can talk and share opinions and even disagree without it getting ugly. Why can't all discussions of this movie be like that? I mean, 100%. But here's their question. Would love to hear you talk about Hux if you do that second part. Thanks, DH. So yeah, let's talk about Hux.
Hux has been on my list to talk about too.
What do you got to say about our red-haired friend?
I just think that his character development is very unique across the trilogy and kind of its like yo-yo-ness a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because this movie opens up with him first seeming very menacing, but also immediately is him being exposed for like kind of a little bitch. I mean, like Poe just roasting him. And you could see like very typical like man-child behavior, like his temper flares right away. And like I'm gonna go into some deeper lore here. I could be mistaken, so someone correct me if they know, but I'm pretty sure he is the son of a high-ranking general or commander or officer of some kind in the Empire.
That's correct.
Who was one of the leaders who went to Exegol and was one of the leaders in Project Cinder. And so like this Hux that we know, born, bred, imperial ideals, first order ideals, like he probably has the most ridiculous like inferiority complex and daddy issues that known to man. So like it makes sense that he's acting the way he does. And thinking he's like Kylo Ren's equal, thinking he's gonna take over when Snoke eventually dies, and Kylo puts him in his place so quickly. It's just interesting to see like him really try. I almost feel bad for him through a lot of the movie because I think he's really trying to kind of come out of the shadow maybe that his father had put forward and like step into a more powerful role and be Kylo's equal, be Snoke's right-hand man, but he keeps getting pushed aside, made fun of, not taken seriously. It's funny, but I always feel a little bad for him. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. So just to give that further background, he's the son of Brendel Hux, who was a commander in the Empire. He had served in the New Republic before that. He was considered one of the person who inspired tons of loyalty. And then after the Imperial defeated Endor, he was able to escape and was appointed to be a member of the Shadow Council. And so as part of that group that was planning and plotting all throughout that we've seen come up in Andor and seen be mentioned in Resistance. And
Matthew, he was
like
part
that.
of the Old Republic or the New Republic?
He was part of he was an officer in the Old Republic.
Old Republic. Okay.
Right. Oh, sorry if I said New Republic.
No, you're fine. I was just trying to clarify.
Also, interesting detail. Armitage Hux, who's the guy we're talking about, is an illegitimate child of this commander, a child of the commander and a kitchen worker, which I just love because it is such a clear reference to, like, when the Lord of the Manor and a kitchen wench, just it. And I think it kind of explains what you're talking about, that this is a guy with a huge chip on his shoulder. He has so much to prove. To me, he is the quintessential bully, in that he's always looking for people who are weaker than him, who he can boss around. He thinks that he can always get his way by yelling and screaming and shouting. But the minute he finds someone who's stronger than him, like Snoke or Kylo, he's back to bowing down. Except when he thinks that Kylo might be like disempowered, and he's like, okay, now I'm going to try and take a spot. Oh, wait, no, that didn't work. All right, I'm back on my knees. Kylo, you're in charge, and I'm just going to bully
Shut down so immediately by a little force choke.
So fast.
Mm-hmm.
You presume to control my army. Yeah, that went over well for you, bud.
It's so funny. I feel like for Hux, you didn't have to tell me he has daddy issues to know he has daddy issues.
Yeah.
It's just written all over everything about him. Like,
It's tough.
he just so badly. I think I agree with you, Alex. I feel bad for him. Truly. Like, because if you were thinking from his point of view, he has been like the perfect soldier, the perfect, then captain, then general, whatever the order is. Like, he does it by the book, and you can tell he takes a lot of pride in his work. And he really believes in it. And like you said, Alex, he just wants to like do better and keep like stepping up to power. And he just gets kind of like cucked at every opportunity, like just kind of shut down. And it's like, it gets to be sad at some point, because you don't want to root for him, because he's literally, they're comparing him to Hitler in the first movie. So we don't really want to have sympathy for him, because if you think about his actual position in the grander story, he's horrible.
Yeah, he's a genocidal, like, maniac.
Exactly.
No, very, very much like not someone you need to like. It's more like it's kind of like, to me at least, it's kind of like that feeling you have where, like, there in like the real world, like, a murder goes on trial and you learn that he was like abused and like just had a terrible childhood and upbringing, where it's like it doesn't excuse the actions. They're still a bad, they're still should be held accountable for their actions, but like you feel a sense of like I think it's just a sense of human understanding, like. Yeah. You turned out the way you did probably because of some really unfair circumstances and upbringing, but doesn't excuse what you did. Doesn't make us forgive you for what you did. But I still feel a little bad for you. I think that's kind of where I go with Hux, at least.
No, I think that's totally relevant. And in some ways, it's funny because he's kind of a joke character, but I think that's kind of a central idea of the whole movie, is this, because it's a theme of accountability and who is to blame for other people's actions and things like that. And, I think the way he's treated as a child probably has a lot to do with how he becomes who he becomes. On the other hand, there's lots and lots of people with daddy issues who don't blow up planets because of it, like, or who don't do any of the kind of bad stuff because of it. With one notable exception that we can discuss, Mr. Anakin, but
my goat.
And I mean Tarkin, who actually is the one who blows up the planet. Major daddy issues.
Oh yeah.
But so yeah, like to me, it's we have to remember, like, by no means as an excuse. Lots of people have those things and don't do these horrible things. But we can also look at it and have, I don't know, for me, the line that is crossed when you become evil is when you stop having any sense of compassion for others. And I think this is the heart and soul of the Force. It's when you stop seeing, like, the dark side is when you you lose the humanity or the sentienceness of another person and just see them as the obstacle to your goal, and so it's justified to kill them. But we can look at someone like Hux and be like, yes, he's a horrible person. He should never be allowed to cause harm again. I'm not sad when he dies. He should be imprisoned or whatever we can do. But I can also still recognize his humanity and recognize that, like, yeah, terrible things happened to him, and that's a part of how he became who he was.
Also, listeners, if you want to know about Tarkin's daddy issues, we discussed that in our book club that is members only. So another reason to consider subscribing.
Yes, very true. Very true. A book that is, you'll have a little trouble like connecting what book it is. It's called Tarkin. We have some books that are very metaphorically named and some that are just like, here's what it's about. But it's a good book.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I think that, and I definitely want to discuss Hux a bit more when we talk about the rise of Skywalker. When that inevitable, incredible conversation occurs, that's going to be poetry in motion, I think. But I just feel like Hux was definitely like, I think he was more of a serious character in the first movie. Like I took Hux very seriously throughout most of the first movie. I saw him as a coward, but I took him as a serious villain. And in this movie, I feel like Rian Johnson really tried to like strip him of some of his aura and power right away. And you saw him as kind of like constantly trying to catch up the whole movie. And like you said, like take that power back, but
yeah,
never really succeeded.
And I think it's fun to have him alongside with Kylo, because obviously Kylo's going to win with everything. But they both have this like kind of want for the power. And when Snoke was there, you know, there was like this thing of like, of course you can't fight each other. And then the moment that Snoke was gone and Kylo was on the floor, he was like, I'm gonna. And then Kylo woke up. He was like, shit.
Yeah.
It's given really major. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matthew.
There really is this essence with both of those characters of like, they're not Darth Vader and the Emperor. And Tarkin. Their boy is cosplaying as that, you know, trying to fill daddy's shoes. Like Hux is very young. He's like late 20s, early 30s. Kylo seemingly is definitely like 20 something. So I just love all of that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's giving like Hux kind of gives a little bit of Krennic energy, just very whiny and like I want power, you know, Daddy Snoke, give me the power. And then Kyle was just like, bitch, I have the power, get out of my way. Like
yeah. So here's our second bit of listener feedback. And this comes from El Violet, which I hope is a reference to Elvira. Maybe it's just I'm thinking that because of spooky season. Either way, it's an awesome name. But El Violet writes, and she's they have a two-part question. We're going to answer one now, and the other we'll save towards the end. They write, I love all your discussions, especially when Aaron gets to talk about cosplay. I have two questions. The first is, am I the only one who was kind of disappointed when Snoke got killed? He was such an interesting character, so different from what we'd seen in the other movies. I really wanted to get more of him. My second question is specifically for Aaron. What are the things that grab your attention when you decide to cosplay someone? Alex and Matthew, have you done any cosplay? Are there characters y'all want to try out? Thanks so much. Love it all. El Violet. So we'll save that second question towards the end, but just starting with that first one.
I have thoughts. Strong thoughts.
Aaron also looked like she wanted to jump in, though. So
I'm sorry, Aaron, you go first.
I was really disappointed. Yeah, I was devastated because I was so excited. They built him up so much in the first movie with this giant hologram. And then when you actually see him in person, he's kind of disappointing. So then it's like, okay, well, they got to be shown as something that like shows and explains why he's so powerful. Nope.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your thoughts, Alex.
I also was very disappointed. I was not disappointed when I saw him, actually. I thought, like, here's this giant creature in gold robes in this all red palace surrounded by guards. And Kylo, like, stands up to him for a second. And Snoke stands up and one little bolt of it just comes out his fingertips. And then when it reaches Kylo, it's the size of a lightning bolt and, like, shoots him to the ground. Like, I was like, oh, my God. And the Andy Serkis performing his voice, I was like, this man is menacing. They've hired a good voice actor. Like, he's going to be such a cool, unique character. And I had so many theories on who I thought he was. And I was like, you know, the way his face was deformed and like, I don't understand what possessed them to kill him off. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess they were expecting, like, they really wanted Kylo Ren to be like the big bad in the final movie. And like, I get that to a degree. Like, you don't want to just kind of carbon copy the originals, but if you're going to introduce such a cool character, you can't just kill him off that quickly. And then in the next movie, write him off as just being like, oh, it's Palpatine anyway, so he doesn't really matter. Like, it just totally, all of it just kind of undermines him. And, you know, during the scene, we actually get like the longest with him in the throne room. he's so menacing. It's so cold and icy. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And like the very least you could do is like give me like a duel with him. Let me see him in full power fighting Kylo and Rey. And instead, Kylo just kills him because Snoke was full of hubris.
Mhm.
Yeah, Palpatine's been asking people to strike him down for 100 years, but that was just the lamest possible way for it to happen. I was extremely disappointed with the disposal of that character and the disposal of Captain Phasma. There was just a lot of killing in this movie. The body count in this movie is actually ridiculous, and some of it was not very satisfactory. But Snoke was probably at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I admit I'm really torn. First of all, just quick note: if we cannot use the word "lame" to mean bad,
Yes, sorry.
no worries. I did it all the time for a while before it was pointed out to me. I was really disappointed because, yeah, I wanted so much more Snoke, and where they go with it was freaking awesome. Though the idea of like Rey and Kylo coming together, like, so I kind of was into it. This is completely theory and conjecture on my part. I've never seen any evidence for this, but I'm wondering if Rian Johnson's idea was that we would get more of both Phasma and Snoke in the third movie in flashbacks, that we would get more of like Kylo being, seduced to the dark side, or like the early days of Kylo joining Snoke, because I think that is such a fascinating part of the story. And yeah, I like that he was so different than the Emperor or Vader. If nothing else, like he clearly, maybe he's a very, very deformed human, but my thought was he's clearly not human. And I just loved that there was the first in a major movie. Well, I guess the prequels. He was yet another non-human Force user, which I really.
Well, I think he's the first non-human like Sith character.
Darth Maul.
Fuck.
Yeah. Okay. So
wait, I can
That was painful.
Put aside all of that, but even so, like he looked so different. He looked so menacing. I wanted to know what was his relationship with Kylo. What was his relationship with the Emperor, if at all? And I will say one thing. I hear what you're saying about a duel. The last thing I would ever want is to see him with a lightsaber in his hand.
You don't want to see a massive lightsaber? It would be so funny.
So this is again going to be my personal opinion, and it's going to be a bit of a divergence, but we'll get back to this, I promise. One thing I loved about the Emperor so much is that he never uses a lightsaber, because to me, he's above it. He is so powerful. He doesn't need like a toy. From his own hands, he can shoot at the Force and have electric. And it's part of why I utterly hate him using a lightsaber in the prequels, because it's just like, that's not the Emperor to me. And the same way, so like I wouldn't want to see that from Snoke, but yeah, see some kind of contest of wills between him and Kylo and Rey, or to see some of that like maybe Luke confronts him in some way. Like, I don't know, but yeah,
you're saying that a lightsaber is uncivilized.
I'm saying that it's a crutch, and I say that as a person who uses crutches all the time.
I was just making an Obi-Wan reference.
I know. I get it. Obi-Wan Kenobi has to be spoken of. It's important.
Yeah,
those who don't know, I'm going to put a post on our Twitter.
That man.
But yeah, now that I'm way, way off track on a tangent, can either of you pull me back and say more about Snoke?
Either there wasn't an actual duel. I think that a battle of wits. Like, what if it was like Luke projecting himself and like engaging Snoke in a battle of the Force? Kind of like, I mean, not exactly like, but like before Yoda and Dooku actually dueled, and they were just using the Force at one another. And I think that was more. I think we discussed this, but I think that was one of the more. That was the more compelling part of their encounter than the actual lightsaber duel was. And I feel like a battle of wits between Snoke and Luke in that way, or just a battle of wits between, like, Snoke has the lightsaber, has Rey's lightsaber. He takes Kylo's as well, and it's like, all right, he tells his guards to stand aside, and he just tries to work. I don't know. The only use of the Force we saw from him was his torture of Rey and that one burst of lightning on Kylo, and that is it. We saw nothing else, and that just feels like really unfortunate for such a cool character, and then he just dies. And I cannot get the image of his half-cut body with his tongue stuck out on the floor ever out of my head.
Yeah, that was something.
It's jarring.
Stupid. Just
Aaron, any other thoughts on Mr. Snoke? What do you think of the feedback, the flashback idea?
I think that's a cool idea. I hadn't thought of something like that. Because yeah, I think I might have said this in the first episode, but when at the end of The Force Awakens, you know, Snoke says like, "Return to me. We're gonna finish your training." I was kind of hoping for like a Mulan style Kylo Ren training montage. That's kind of what I was hoping for, and we didn't get it. So I would have loved to see something like that in flashbacks.
Who knows? Like we get Tales of the Jedi, we get Tales of the Sith, so we might get one of him at some point soon. Side note, we've heard that we're going to get more of Balin's story. The male Jedi, the male orange lightsaber former Jedi in Ahsoka, who was such a phenomenal character. Of course, not voiced by the original actor, who has sadly passed away, but it was someone else who's cast. Who can't remember off the name. But point being, so we might get more of Snoke's story and something like that. But let's talk about the other one also that you mentioned, Alex.
Real quick. Sorry, just there are comics that talk about Snoke's past a little bit, but it focuses more on the beginning of Snoke training Kylo and like kind of Kylo's fall to the dark side. But we still don't learn a ton. But there is some content that exists out there that is pre-Snoke or pre-sequel Snoke, but it's unfortunately kind of not publicized and kind of buried, which is frustrating to me because I feel like a novel or a show or something would be really, even not a whole show, even just an episode in a Tales of the Jedi type thing would be really beneficial. I just wanted to add that. We can totally talk about Phasma now.
Definitely. And certainly anyone who has read those comics and has more thoughts on it, please write in. All the information is on our website and in the show notes. Let's talk about Phasma. Alex, what do you think of this character and her somewhat early demise?
When I remember watching the original episode 7 trailer and thinking, holy shit, this is the most badass looking stormtrooper I have ever seen in my life. And having this just clad silver mysterious warrior. I mean, she was so menacing. Like in the very first scene, she's like, "Sir, the villagers," and he's like, "Kill them." She's like, "Great, just executioner." Like she was scary. And you know, even like the kind of comical, you know, relief at the end of episode 7 where, you know, like a throwing a trash compactor, like that was fine because she came back in episode 8 with a vengeance. And like again, her fight with Finn, one of my favorite fights in the sequels. I mean, that was like raw, it was cool, it was different, I thought.
Yeah, like,
and
creative.
There was a way for that fight to end and her not die. Like it just felt like we hyped up Captain Phasma. They hyped her up. They included her in all the promotional materials. They made her a really important thing. Gwen, what's her last name?
Christie.
Gwendolyn Christie.
Gwendolyn Christie. Thank you. Was you know, speaking at celebration and panels. Like she was like one of the faces of the promotion of episode 8, and they kill her off. And it's just like, I didn't see like a value. Like there was not like an emotional weight to her death. Like it was actually surprising to me because I just was like, there's no way this is the end of her story. Like I thought she was gonna come back somehow. It was really weird to me that you would kill off such a unique character when there was no need to. Like she could have absolutely been an enforcer under Kylo. Like Kylo could have like, you know, hired like promoted her to be like his personal enforcer, personal girl. There's so many ways that she could have been included. But I felt like she was kind of thrown aside because they're like, crap, you know, we didn't really touch on the Knights of Ren. So now in episode 9, we have to run with the Knights of Ren and just Kylo and throw away all these other cool characters. And it just didn't feel like they were doing it justice. Like Star Wars' strength is at its best when you have these diverse and unique and different characters kind of having their own little roles and stories. And hers just felt like it was cut way too short.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a crime that we got an entire, most of a trilogy with Gwendolyn Christie as a badass female warrior, and we never got to see the like cracked helmet. You like rip it off, throw it to the side, and like that's what I wanted to see.
Yes,
yeah,
because she is huge.
Game of Thrones-esque.
Run exactly. That's what I want. I really just want
Game of Thrones with lightsabers.
I just want, yeah.
Exactly. And she's such a good actress. If you just look at like what she's done in Game of Thrones, but then compare her to what she did in Sandman, where she's playing literally like the devil. She's playing Lucifer. and is just gorgeous and powerful and seductive and evil in all these incredible ways. And like, I'm not saying that's what Phasma should be, but clearly, like, if that's the range, like, there's so much more that could have been done with Phasma. And not to go back to a theme we already talked about, but I feel like having her die so early really hurts Finn as well, because she is his personal enemy. You know, she is the one who notices that he didn't fire his gun, who is harassing him, who is so focused on like, you're the person I hate most, not Poe or not Rey, but you, because you're a deserter. And just imagine, especially like, you know, if you do have any kind of that plot of episode 3 of the last episode 9, of him leading this group of you know, former deserter stormtroopers, and like, she's their big bad who they have to confront. Yeah, I just don't get it. And that one I definitely will blame Ryan a little bit on, but I don't know if he, like, again, had a plan to have her come back in flashbacks, or I mean, she's in this like full bodysuit with a little bit of her face exposed as she falls into fire. Like, people have lived through worse in this universe. So I don't know if his plan was that she wasn't dead, but then again, because they went the Knights of Ren, that they just ignored that. I got nothing, but I would have loved so much more from that character.
I do think it's a disconjunction of the directors, because I think that JJ put so much. I think the part of the problem was that Ryan just ignored the Knights of Ren in episode 8 completely, and because of that, they felt like they had to overcompensate in episode 9. If they just included them in some aspect, I think maybe instead of Praetorian Guards, you just had the Knights of Ren, and then Phasma could have been having her bigger role in episode 9 as expected. Not the Praetorian Guards aren't super cool and one of the coolest designs, you know, in Star Wars, but like, there's just, I think it was like JJ was like, well, I had this idea in episode 7 and we didn't even get to talk about it in episode 8, so I'm bringing them back and making them the main story. And I don't know. I just Ryan made some decisions that we'll never know why, because he had something in mind, I guess, for the future, but it all just felt very silly. Very silly.
I think it's fair. And I think because I like the 8th movie so much more than the 7th or the 9th, and because I like his vision so much more than JJ's, I always want to be like, let's blame JJ. But I think in fairness, like, we don't actually know the exact dialogue. I think at the end, the blame has to be on whoever was the boss of both of them, who didn't just lock them in a room and say, like, you got to make one cohesive story over these 3 movies.
I mean, Kathleen Kennedy.
Probably, yeah. And to be clear, I think Kathleen Kennedy has done so many wonderful things for Star Wars.
Absolutely.
I think wonderful. But I also think she's above critique. And I think this is probably the blame for these movies not lining up probably falls most with her.
Yeah. And that is fair, honestly, Matthew. I mean, like I'm not sure if JJ even knew he was directing the next movie. I don't know if Ryan knew what he was doing. I think it was the lack of, like, Ryan got his movie, he wanted to tell his story, didn't know what he was going to get to do in the future, and there wasn't the foresight to plan how is this going to tie into episode 9. We have another movie to do. Like, I mean, the last thing I'll say on this is, let's look for a second at Attack of the Clones and Empire. What major characters die in those movies? Correct. None. Because there was a 3rd movie in the trilogy that is when deaths and things happen. That's when, like, you save those big things. Not that no one can die. Like if Luke had died in this movie, that would have been plenty. The fact that we lost Luke, Phasma, Snoke, you know, they killed all those rebels in the beginning. You killed Holdo, who you just introduced. I mean, again, the freaking body count in this movie was ridiculous. I don't understand why it was necessary.
I mean, they literally blew up, like, was that a Star Destroyer?
Oh, no. You want to talk about the Holdo maneuver?
Yeah, they destroyed 2 ships. The one at the beginning that Poe and the bombers. It's a Devastator or a Dreadnought.
Dreadnought. Yeah, that's it.
But then, yes, towards the end of the movie, they also destroy the Snoke's personal ship. Let's talk about the Holdo maneuver.
Yes. One of the coolest things I've ever seen on television.
Yeah.
Every time it happens, like, I just and I get like goosebumps. I'm like, oh, something cool is happening. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I said it last time, but I'll say it again. I literally said, holy shit, out loud, involuntarily in the movie theater. It was dead silent. It was just visually so stunning. Oh my God.
I think it is the most effective use of silence that I've ever heard in a movie. like just having it be entirely silent for like 2 seconds. And I was never quite sure. Are you like, because you see the thing happen to Snoke's ship, and then something happened to all the ships behind, like in a cone behind it. Was the idea that like debris from it like knocks out all the Star Destroyers behind it?
Yeah, I think the idea is that like she's going so fast, she pummels through the first ship, and her ship breaks into pieces. Snoke's ship breaks into pieces, and all that debris is still on that trajectory because it was going so fast that it just shoots through all the ships behind it, shattering everything in its path.
Right.
That was my interpretation, at least.
I
Yeah.
was like, she created a lightning bolt. That's how
Yeah.
it happened.
I mean, it was a cone weapon. If you've done D&D, you know how those work. It's like a dragon breath weapon.
Yeah. Speaking as a dragonborn sorcerer.
There you go. Yeah, when I think about the rest of Star Wars and the rest of what they've told us about hyperspace, I don't think it makes any sense. And I utterly don't care. Like, to me, it is one of those, like, it's why I don't want to know the rules. I don't want to know the rules of the Force. I don't want to know the rules of hyperspace. I want to have some mystery so that something like this can exist. And I'm not going to sit there like, oh no, but the ship would have gone this fast, or this wouldn't have happened, or why didn't they do it before, or whatever. Like, it was an amazing maneuver. Let's just enjoy that.
And why didn't we do it before? Just maybe no one thought of it. Maybe Hold was just original, and maybe it's also like, I mean, they kind of walked it back a little bit in episode 9, just slightly saying like, that's 1 in a million for that to work or whatever. It's just such a small chance, and I think that alleviates a little bit of it, I guess, because I mean, I think that like for it to work, it has to be like she has to go through just the perfect space. It has to be the perfect element of surprise. There's so much that has to go right for that to work. But I mean, just I agree, Matthew. I just don't care. Like from a visual standpoint, not everything in Star Wars makes sense. It's just how Star Wars is, and you have to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief, I think. I mean, come on, you have to spend a little disbelief in Star Wars, and it's just like every time I watch it, you're right. The silence, the visuals, as a photographer, with the visual of it just is so beautiful and raw, and just it almost harkens back. And it felt like a slight harken back to the charges that Jango Fett uses, seismic charges Jango Fett uses in episode 2, where it's just dead silent, and then the exploding sound. And you're just like, oh my god,
that was so good.
Perfect.
The sonic,
one of my favorite parts of Attack of the Clones. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Star Wars, as it loves to do, did some like context backfilling with this kind of a concept.
As it likes to do.
The High Republic books. Oh my gosh, I just love the concept of like just war through hyperspace. Like it's such a terrifying concept. And it's how, in this movie, they're like, they tracked us through hyperspace. Like it's something that nobody has thought of, but Holdo thought of it. And apparently people thought of it a long time before that, but we're going to pretend everybody forgot, and then Holdo rethought of it.
We'll see.
Maybe Holdo was a good student, just actually paid attention.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe she liked history.
Yeah. All right. Any other last things from this movie that we didn't get to talk about last week that we wanted to bring up?
Let me think. What was y'all's take on, like, Rey shows up, saves the day, but we find that she has all of the Jedi texts. Did that feel in character to y'all?
That Rey had a bunch of Jedi texts?
I don't know. To me, it feels like Yoda's like, there's nothing in that tree, but the girl Rey is not already possessed. And her having the books, I think it makes that more of a joke that Yoda has on Luke than a teaching moment. And I feel like it worked better as a teaching moment of like, Rey doesn't need all those old dusty texts. They're pointless. Like the whole point of that scene to me was like Yoda saying, we've moved beyond that. Rey's doing her own thing, and then she took the text anyway and is going to keep them alive. And that felt like it was kind of backtracking on that really cool concept I liked.
Yeah, it felt to me like a bit of a cop-out. It
Thank
felt
you.
to me like, because to me, there really is something beautiful about like the synergy there of that both Kylo and Rey/Luke are obsessed with the past. Rey wants to be a Sith, just like, Grandpa. Rey wants to be a Jedi, just like all these legends she's heard about. And that what Yoda is teaching and they're both learning is no, kill the past, create something new.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was really disappointing to me. And I kind of was able to write it off and think maybe the idea is that like, again, I was thinking to the next movie, like it's going to be trying to start again, that it's going to be like something that she's tempted by, but is able to finally be like, she's going to close those books entirely and be like, no, I don't need these. We're starting something new.
Mhm.
Of course we didn't get that. So yeah. So and again, in my head canon, Disney made them put it back in to be like, okay, Ryan, you can't completely destroy all this. Like, but who knows? Maybe Ryan wanted it all in there all the time, but
I also have one other thing I have written down here. I just want to talk about briefly. Kylo, we don't really talk much about Kylo Ren in this movie, and I'm just curious if y'all had thoughts on him. Like the whole movie, you feel like, oh my god, he's gonna Rey's gonna turn him. Like they've been communicating, they've been doing that whole, mind to mind connection thanks to Snoke, and we see Ben Solo. Rey's all pissy, but slowly,
Yes.
she like seems to get to him, and you're like, oh, maybe maybe there's good in him. And then like in the end, he sees dead Snoke and he snaps and he's like, no, I can be king, I can be ruler, I can be leader. Like, did that make sense to you? Or y'all disappointed by that? Did that like what were your thoughts? And I feel like that was a real big watershed moment in this movie of like they worked together. It felt like there was finally a breakthrough. They just kick ass, killing all of the Praetorian guards, defeat Snoke. And then Kylo just turns on her, and Rey looks so. I mean, some great acting by Daisy Ridley. She looks just devastated, defeated. Like, more than I've seen her at any other point in the whole series. She's just like, how could you? Like, how could you do this? Did that? Any thoughts on that for either one of you? Like,
Yeah, I think her exact words was, "Don't do this."
yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like when I initially watched it, I kind of thought he was gonna turn too. But then I sat there and I was like, this is the second movie. If Snoke is dead, who's our bad guy? So it's like he kind of can't turn yet. I was like, well, then maybe just like opened the door. So I don't know. It was I feel like it makes sense for him. I kind of do. Like,
yeah,
it's abrupt, but I feel like people can work together very easily for a common goal for very different reasons. And I think he mostly had his common goal in mind rather than actually teaming up to do something else. I think he was like, we are connected. I see that you're powerful. You're here. Let's take out Snoke. And now that we've won, let's do my thing. And she's like, now that we've won, let's do my thing. And then they're both like, no, fuck you. And then they rip Anakin's lightsaber in half.
Yeah.
That was crazy. They broke a kyber crystal in half.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the last thing of what Aaron was saying there. I don't, because again, and again, maybe this is just me dreaming of what the third movie could have been. But for me, he has just killed his mentor. She has just abandoned her mentor. Like, they're both in this place of like, the Sith are dumb, the Jedi are dumb. Let's meet in the middle somewhere. And to me, it is heartbreaking. Like, I very much wanted Kylo not to do that, which was brilliant filmmaking because it meant I felt Rey's disappointment because I was disappointed too. But I think you're right. Like, they're not close enough yet. And I think, I don't think that Kylo is still just completely dark side at that point. I think he is still kind of like, no, maybe Rey's making some good points when we keep connecting. Maybe there is some more things to think about. And to me, what it's all about is like getting away from this binality of there's either just the dark side and the light side and no nuance whatsoever. And I think he's trying to reach a hand across, but also to say like, but I want to like, it's very much kind of like the Anakin moment right before he fully falls, where he's like, Padme, like you and I could like rule together. Like, and then later, like Luke, you and I could rule together. Like, there's this sense of like, we could do good, but it's still gonna be all about our power. And Rey's able to see that. Rey's able to be like, no, you're still You still want it to be about your power, and that's never going to be good for anybody.
Yeah, I think I agree in that. Like, it made me feel more. It made sense story wise, but it just it broke my heart so much.
Yeah.
And like after Kylo like tried to kill his mom, and like he was just so far gone. I was like, this is your chance. Come back to us, Ben. Come back to us. And she always kept calling him Ben and not using his Sith name. And I really do think that Episode 8 like really pulled at all the heartstrings and the emotion and really well. And again, not a perfect movie as we've discussed. And I think there's a lot of flaws in it. Like all the other Star Wars movies, there's flaws in it. There's some pacing issues, but I think from a visual standpoint and like emotional standpoint, it is far and away the best of the sequels.
Yeah. And I'll just add one other point to this, and feel free to tell me if you think I'm wrong here. Like, I make a joke about him being a fuckboy, earlier, especially in the first and the second movie. But I think kind of here, in a more serious way, and not a way that I'm like, oh, poor him, or oh, poor all the other guys that this represents, but in a way that feels very real. He's someone who has had very little emotional connection with others, he's being raised by the Jedi, and then the person he thinks of as mentor, whether you think his memory is correct or not, his memory is that his uncle, his mentor, was going to kill him, and that his parents had kind of shipped him away, to go be off. Like, he feels abandoned, he feels alone. And now comes this beautiful girl who he feels a connection with, and he feels like, you and I are going to totally go and take over together. And very much in that same kind of mold, there's never it's like, oh, you are the perfect person. I've slotted you into my fairy tale. You're going to want all the same things I want because I'm not actually paying attention to what you want. And so when she's like, no, I actually don't want all the things you want, please go away, he's like, fuck it. Okay, well, I'm just going to go totally bad now. Like, we see that story in real life all the time, and again, not to say like it's a sympathetic, I mean, like we said at the beginning, everything I can be sympathetic, but I'm not saying like, oh, those poor guys who get rejected. It's like, no, it's the fuckboy behavior of like, I don't actually care about this person's wants. I just want I want them to want what I want. But I do think the fact that he like seeks a real connection with her on his terms, gets rejected, and just like, all right, screw it, we're going all the way dark side. Makes total sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with that.
So yeah, I think like if you think about it, you can definitely make it make sense. You can find reasonings, but in the moment, it is incredibly jarring.
Yeah,
because it seems like he's softening up so much throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I think.
But ulterior motives or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I think to the answer to the question, I think we do feel disappointed, but I think that's kind of part of the brilliance of it.
Of course, yeah.
Any of the last comments on this before we can get to the fun cosplay question?
R.I.P. Master Skywalker. That's it.
Ugh. Gone too soon.
Yeah. It pains me that we never really got the connection moments, like, I still think that, to me, the moment that always makes me sob the most, there's so many moments that make me cry in this movie, but the moment that hits me the most is, wait, where's Han? And just like, right? But yeah, I think everything about Luke's story, I just love.
If I may,
go
ahead, Matthew.
I was saying, and I get why some people don't love it, and that's totally okay. I'm not saying that that's invalid. I'm just saying that, like, a lot of people love it. I'm definitely one of them.
I may have brought this up in this podcast before, but maybe not. Something that actually bothered me was they cut a scene 30 seconds where Luke is in his hut, just kind of like after that news, like he folds up his robe, he's contemplating, like he's taking that minute to grieve and reflect on the loss of Han. And I really wish they had left that in. I know it's a long movie, but like that bond between the two of them is so deep, and it feels like we only get that one line from Luke. And I would really like to see a moment with like Mark Hamill was acting and Luke like thinking back on the loss of his friend and reflecting on the fact that he wasn't there to save Han, to be there to help. And it feels like that would have been a really powerful moment. They filmed it, it was there, it exists. Keep it in the movie. I just that choice I disagreed with, taking that out, because the Luke I know is very emotional and would have, at least for a minute, reflected on, and I think it would have been cool to see that on screen.
I agree. That's a real bummer they took it out of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, because you think about it, like, what's the thing that motivates him in Empire? It's the desire to save the friends, the people he loves,
Mhm.
and the idea that because he decided to take the step back, he wasn't there to save Han. Yeah, I never really thought about it in those terms, Alex, but of course that would be part of what would motivate him. So,
Mhm.
all right, let's turn to that last question we got from El Violet. Aaron, so let me read it again. What are the things that grab your attention when you decide to cosplay someone?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that go into it, and all my different cosplays have different reasonings, kind of. So, like,
Mhm.
for Ahsoka, I was just like, I'm obsessed with her. I don't care how hard this is. I'm doing it. For cosplays like Mystique and Shin and Luna, I'm like, I'm obsessed with these ladies. I'm simping hard. Like, I want them or I want to be them. I actually want both, is the answer.
Mhm.
So it's like if I'm simping or obsessing over somebody, I definitely like to cosplay them. And some of them are just because it's easy. Like
Mhm.
that's what my black cat is. That's what my Poison Ivy 52 is. However, I do love Ivy and I want to do another version of her.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing that's actually interesting is a lot of my characters I don't know that much about. And
Mm.
then I learn about them. Like my friend was selling her Raven cloak for $20 and it's like handmade, super nice. I was like, give me that. I need a new cosplay.
Mhm.
And then I started watching Teen Titans. And now it's just been such a fun adventure of like watching the show and getting to know the characters as I'm making like this bodysuit and like putting the stuff together for her cosplay. So I really like I guess how do I pick a character? That was the first question.
Yeah.
Somebody that I like enough to learn more about and to like
Mhm.
become somewhat intimate with the character.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that. Do you feel that there are some that feel like Ahsoka obviously has been such a big connection for you since you were little? Are
mhm.
there some characters who feel more like it feels a little more distant to you than others, or are you able to kind of just whoever the character is when you have the cosplay on, like you are that character?
No, I wouldn't say that. I feel like what even are my cosplays? I don't feel like I relate to Felicia Hardy very much,
Mhm.
but I do love to cosplay Black Cat. Um, I don't know. I have trouble with like the flirtier, like lighthearted personalities. I can do like intense or I can do like funny and
Mhm.
cutesy, but I'm not good at like I don't know. So yeah, I guess and I also really don't know much about that character, so she feels pretty distant to me.
I can see that.
Um but I would say all the characters I currently cosplay, there's like an aspect about them that I really identify with. Like I mean, yeah, for Mystique, like I'm obviously not a shapeshifter, but as someone with ADHD who is on the spectrum, like I relate to that kind of like shape shifting between friend groups or between like the people you're interacting with.
Mhm.
And then also just feeling like, okay, well, nobody actually knows who I am and I don't either. Like that's kind of something I went through when I was growing up because puberty. That's how
Yeah.
that works. But yeah, so I kind of relate to her for that. Yeah.
Nice. And Alex, what about you? You've done a little cosplay, right?
Mhm.
Not at the godlike level of Aaron, but I do have,
Immortals can.
yeah, I've cosplayed as Anakin and Obi-Wan, and also for any anime fans out there, I've done Naruto Uzumaki a couple times.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it was really just as a kid, I loved Halloween. I still love Halloween. It's like my favorite holiday.
Mhm.
And dressing up as, there's photos of me when I was in first grade and second grade and many other grades dressing up as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I felt like such, and, whenever I had my little plastic lightsaber as a kid, I felt like so powerful. I felt like I was reenacting the heroes that I always looked up to. And it made me feel safe and secure and strong. And I think that as an adult, when I finally got some adult money and I got a real lightsaber, I was like, I need the Jedi robes to match. And so I got my Obi-Wan cosplay when I was in college and got an Anakin one a year or two ago. And
Nice.
it just feels very freeing. Kind of like Aaron said, like no one really knows who I am. And like my cosplays are not very expensive. They're not like probably perfectly accurate either, but
Mhm.
it still feels really cool to dress up. I feel really just, feels fun. It's fun for me. Like I don't care if no one else appreciates it, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
that's what matters.
I think that's what matters with cosplaying. And my very limited experience, that would be my advice to anyone who is like entry level and just wants to get into it, is just do it for yourself. And if you have fun with it and really enjoy it, people like Aaron are out there and exist and will gladly give you advice and talk to you and help you build yourself up. So
definitely
give it a go.
And I'd say, yeah, I've done less cosplay than either of you. I was Admiral Akbar when I was 7 and 8 for Halloween. But I just had a mask and like a white uniform. I have Jedi robes, and probably like the closest thing I've done to cosplay was when I've been getting very involved in the TCG, the collectible card game, Star Wars Unlimited, which is a great game. I'll talk about that at some point. I've been judging a lot. And on May the 4th, I got to judge a tournament for that while wearing sort of Jedi robes with them with my judge shirt over that. But it wasn't really cosplay. I was still like me as a judge, but just with the Jedi thing. But I've been wanting to for a while. I've been thinking a lot about trying to do something with my wheelchair, and there's a lot of awesome people who are doing stuff like that. I just haven't had the time and the money to, mostly the time to kind of really dedicate to it. But I hope to, because I'm just constantly inspired by Aaron and so many other people who are following me or following us on, who I find on social media all the time. So, Violet, thank you so much for the question. Same to Darth Hobbit. To all of our listeners, please keep sending us questions and things like that. We're going to have some bonus content about the next chapter in that book, from a certain point of view. And for everybody else, thank you so much. We have spoken.
Stay classy. Canto bite.
I will teach you the ways of the Jedi and why they need to end.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Alex, the way you and I both went.
Yeah, I was like, ugh. Is Canto Bite the actual planet, or is that just the town?
I have no idea.
How do you know?
I think Canto Bite is the name of like that town.
Well,
but I'm not
fuck
positive.
you, Canto Bite.
I mean, you can still say classy to a city.
Yeah, I know. That's what Ron does, Anchorman. Stay classy, San Diego. But he also says, go fuck yourself, San Diego. So, and Canto Bite can get both.
Okay. I just sent you a link. We keep forgetting to do it, which means I keep forgetting to get us to do it. We're going to do that promo ad right now.
Yeah.
So open up the text I just sent you. Please. Now.
Okay, hold on. I was looking for my phone. They were rude to us, so they get kicked out.
That is really tragic timing.
It was not me hearing just because you started speaking something. I just had to use that. What were you gonna say?
I have no idea. I already forgot.
Yeah, apparently the button to move my window to the side of the screen and the button to destroy my window and send it off to Never Never Land.
Here's the thing. I don't want to say Gen Zer. There's got to be a better way to say that.
I mean, I'm barely a millennial, so I'm like in between millennial and Gen Z.
Should I say Z-Dog?
You call yourself a Zoomer.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Feel free to edit this or say whatever the hell you want as we're going.
No.
Let's also clap though, because we've gotten totally fucked up. 3, 2, 1. Aaron, take us away.
Ever happened? Nope.
Damn. First words.
We are totally doing a bloopers track of this for our members.
Just stop looking. I can't perform when you're looking at me.
Shut the fuck up.
That comes from the Solo movie, which I thought we were talking about.
My camera's off.
Okay. Ever wondered what happens when a Zoomer who grew up on Rebels? Wait, actually, sorry, we got to roll that back. I didn't watch Rebels. I watched the Clone Wars.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
Also, you can say it a little bit more normally.
Okay.
Sorry. Just like make it conversational.
Okay.
Okay.
Ever wondered what happens when a Zoomer who grew up on the Clone Wars?
A millennial Anakin defender.
And a grumpy old Gen Z Oops. And a grumpy old Gen Xer walk into a cantina to talk Star Wars?
Then we've got the podcast for you.
Star Wars Generations is a place for fans of all backgrounds to come together and talk about why we love this franchise and what we can learn from each other.
With so much new Star Wars content coming out, we took a deep dive into all of it. We talk stories and characters, what we learn about the Force and the Empire, Republics old and new, and how each story adds to the larger picture.
Besides episode by episode coverage of the new shows, we've been going back and watching the movies in release order. We talk about the Star Wars novels and video games, along with some fan content and cosplay content.
And with each episode, we're just starting the conversation. And with each episode, we're just starting the conversation, and we hope you jump in. We'll read your feedback, answer your questions. We've even had full episodes dedicated to questions raised by listeners like you.
You can find us under Star Wars Generations on your favorite podcast app or by going to theethicalpanda.com. May the Force be with you.
Now this is pod racing. Fuck.
For the Republic!
I was supposed to say podcasting though. Go back.
Let's do the whole thing again. When I said about feeling normal, everyone suddenly became very wooden. That's entirely my fault. Be yourselves, drama it up, flirt like crazy, be scary, menacing, however the hell you want to do it.
Okay.
Don't think, just go.
Okay, well, I can't see because I pushed on my eyes too hard.
This way.
Ever wondered what happens when a Zoomer who grew up on the Clone Wars,
A millennial Anakin defender,
and a grumpy old Gen Xer walk into a cantina to talk Star Wars?
then we've got the podcast for you.
Star Wars Generations is a place for fans of all backgrounds to come together, talk about why we love the franchise, and what we can learn from each other.
With so much new Star Wars content coming out, we take a deep dive into all of it. We talk stories and characters, what we learn about the Force and the Empire, Republics old and new, and how each story adds to the larger picture.
Besides episode by episode coverage of the new shows, we've been going back to watch the movies in release order. We talk about Star Wars novels and video games, along with fan content and cosplay.
And with each episode, we're just starting the conversation, and we hope you jump in. We'll read your feedback, answer your questions. We've even had full episodes dedicated to questions raised by listeners like you.
You can find us under Star Wars Generations on your favorite podcast app or by going to theethicalpanda.com. May the Force be with you.
Now this is podcasting.
Yeah, for the Republic.
Cool. All right. Thank you both.
Slay!
Don't slay.
Podcasting's way.
Sure. All right. Back to looking at your wonderful faces. Can you look up the name of actually you can't see my camera anymore, so I'm gonna look it up. I have the power.
It's called Added Muscle.
Added
Oh,
muscle.
did you mean the person?
Nope. Paul. I knew it was Paul Dini, who's the creator of Ahsoka, right? No. Paul Dini is the creator of Harley Quinn, I think.
Like
Okay, I
the
was like-
character?
Yeah.
What?
He was a writer for Batman the animated series.
That's cool.
Yep, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Okay. Welcome back, members. We're doing today another chapter in the From a Certain Point of View book about A New Hope. And today we're talking about Added Muscle by Paul Dini. Paul Dini is a name who's probably recognizable to a lot of the older fans. If you knew Batman the Animated Series, he was a regular writer for that. Both him and Bruce Timm were together the creators of the character Harley Quinn. So he's added a whole bunch to sort of geek lore and stuff like that. And with this, he takes up his pen to write us a Star Wars story. And it's a Star Wars story told from the perspective of one Boba Fett. Aaron, tell us what the story's about.
So this story is Boba's point of view as the quote-unquote add-in muscle to Jabba's gang of newbies when they go to confront Han Solo for owing Jabba money. This is the scene we see in A New Hope. And so, yeah, it's just Boba Fett's point of view. He's kind of feeling like the man. He's like, I'm so much greater than these guys. Look at these amateurs. Like, I'm such a celebrity. And then he's like talking shit on Han in his head. And he's like, thinking about killing Chewbacca to add to his Wookiee scalp collection. And then he's like, oh shit, the meeting's over. Jabba really let him get away with that? Okay, well, I guess we'll go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like there's no plot. It's just a point of view of that particular scene. And for those who are a little confused, by the way, this is one of the added scenes that was put in the remastered versions. It is generally considered by, I think, many not to be a positive addition to the movie, but some do really like it, and that's great for them. But I love, once again, they're kind of taking moments that are often panned in Star Wars fandom and being like, okay, let's give you a cool perspective. What if we just talk about Boba's perspective on this? And yeah, I think it's really fun. It kind of name drops and puts lampshades on a couple things. We hear that he's kind of in the doghouse with Darth Vader because he disintegrated a couple of potential rebel spies, and that starts the whole like no disintegrations that we hear about later in Empire Strikes
No
Back.
disintegration.
Exactly. Yeah, so I just like it didn't add much to my understanding of Star Wars, but it was a lot of fun.
There was one line I personally appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Mama Fett didn't raise any fools. Strictly speaking, my mama was a birthing pod, but you get the point.
Yeah. I have moments like that, especially like, as someone with one leg or someone who's not really fitting in the gender binary, where something funny occurs to me, but it doesn't really, like, to tell my truth doesn't quite fit into like the actual meme. And I just love that of like, okay, you know what I mean? I'm using this expression. I didn't have a mama, but yeah, it fits anyway.
Doesn't apply, but anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's one little piece of the story that I actually really liked was that he says that he thinks he is Jabba's closest friend.
Yeah. I actually, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you mind if I read the little paragraph.
Oh, no, I actually had it screenshotted too. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that's funny. Still, I can't help but think Jabba considers me the closest thing he has to a friend. Well, closer anyway than that creepy suck-up Fortuna and that shrieking varmint he keeps as a pet. Some nights when the lights are down in the palace and his scum buddies are snoozing, Jabba pulls out a bottle of his really prime Gardula, kicks Rebo awake, orders him to play something low and sad, and invites me to have a few. So I take off my helmet, but never my gun, and drink as much as he pours. And the hut talks. A lot. Personal things nobody else gets to hear. Stories of loves lost, enemies crushed, deals brokered then broken, regrets, possibility, things that eat his soul, if he's got one, of course. But I don't understand a word he says. The drink is good, though, and the company is considerable. Or the company, considering what Jabba pays, is tolerable.
Yeah, I love that because I hated it till those last lines. Because I was like, don't make Jawa like soft and squishy and like play it again, Sam. Like I was like, what in the world is this side of Jawa? Till we get to Boba Fett at the end being like, I mean, I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm just making all this up, but it's fine. It really gets to Boba's kind of offbeat sense of humor and his willingness to just be like, here's the situation, whatever's going on is going on. I'm not gonna ask questions. I'm just here.
Which is kind of funny. It reminds me a bit of like a clone and kind of their like really dry sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of, not relating to normal people stuff.
Yep.
Disrespect for Salacious Crumb, though.
That was some mad disrespect on Salacious Crumb.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to say that my other regular co-host from time to time, my other co-host over on Superhero Ethics, who's been on this podcast a lot too, was a co-host for a while. Rike Hayashi is a huge Salacious Crumb fan, so he would have stood up.
I knew I liked Rike.
I
liked him.
Yeah, anything else about the story? Like, I think it's just kind of fun, and the next one I know is going to be a lot longer, so a lot more to dive into. But yeah, I just enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it was a fun read.
And this came out before Boba Fett was hashed out more, so it's fun to get a little peek inside his mind before we get to see an entire show about him. But
yeah, I was gonna say I always love learning more about like those masked characters. Like here's what I want actually.
Here we go.
I want a biopic of Bosk.
A biopic? An entire film?
I would like to know what he's been up to. Start to finish.
I'm sorry. The
He is-
Clone War, his skeeving dealings in the Clone Wars aren't enough for you. Doesn't fill your needs.
Nope.
I mean, we get to see a lot of Wookiees because, like, they're Wookiee hunters. That's like the Trandoshans. That's the main thing his people do. He would be on a, like, if you gave me Tales of the Bounty Hunters.
Oh my
I don't want a full movie, but Tales of the Bounty Hunters, I'd be down for. But you know who's a lot higher on that list is Hondo Anaka. And you know
Of
who's
course.
just below Hondo Anaka on that list of ones I want to see? Cad motherfucking Bane.
You want to know who's
And I
on my
wanna
list?
Who's that?
Or saying.
Damn it. Embo. I do want to see Embo.
Embo!
Embo would be sick. Embo would be
Embo's the
sick.
Hat Man,
But
right?
Aura is what
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
Of.
Well, Aura, I want to know because who killed Aura again?
Tobias.
To buy right. Like,
Beckett.
I would high key. I want to see that happen. Is
You're
that
the man
bad?
who killed Aura Singh.
Yeah,
Well, I pushed her.
I
I think
pushed
the
her.
fall killed her.
Yeah, like bring Woody Harrelson in for like just one episode. Like record your lines like that. If a Lucasfilm exec ever finds this and you make that show, we demand royalties.
Let's not say that because then they'll stop listening to us. Not that
That's
we're listening
fair.
to us in the first place, but I understand. Anyway, yeah. Okay, we got like 2-3 more minutes. So we've got Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Sith, Tales of the Clones is coming, I believe, and we basically had. I mean, the Clone Wars is basically Tales of
Tales
the
of the
Clones.
Clones.
Not enough.
Tales of the Bounty Hunters is one we want. What are like 3 others we want? Each person
3
name one.
others.
Tales of the Senate.
Yeah, I can go from
that's a
Senate
good one.
politics. What time
I
would
want
you-
it to be like Suits or like Scandal. Like that's the kind of drama I want
Yeah,
for Tales of the Senate. I want Scandal.
I want West Wing, but like we can up the thirst a lot. Either way works.
Yeah.
I don't know how the wording would be, but like a Tales of the Republic, but it's just like stories of different like regular citizens of the Republic that like are existing during the middle of like the Zillow Beast attack or like the when there was the attack on the power grid or when Palpatine takes power or at the end of episode 6 when like they're tearing down the statue, like just I don't know, like little moments of like citizens.
Tales of the Bystanders.
Tales of the Bystanders,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tales of the Citizens.
Tales of the Citizens. Be kind of
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah.
You know what? I want Tales of the Coruscant Underworld.
That'd be sick.
Oh yeah, that could be fun. That could
Tales
be
of
fun.
the Huts, just the different huts and what the fuck's going on with the huts.
I'm actually very curious about that as well.
I mean, we did get a lot of that in the Clone Wars.
No, we need more.
Not enough.
You're talking to the wrong people here, Matthew. We want more.
I think I'm getting off this train about now, but I'll just say the last one I would want is Tales of the Inquisitors. I want to know more of their backstories and like how they fell and like what they became and what happened to them.
There's a lot of tales I want. They should just make that a recurring thing every year. I want more tales is what I need.
Tales of Tales. All the aliens that have tails.
Tales of fighter pilots.
I mean, again, Rogue Squadron, great.
Tales of the Stormtroopers. Like just what's it like to
I
be
don't care about that.
what is it like to be one of those snowtroopers on Hoth or one of the people that got attacked by the Ewoks?
I don't.
Tales
need
of the
a book.
Ewoks.
Again, we have a whole movie about that.
No, not enough. No, we
Aaron,
don't.
what does he don't need, and that's where we'll end.
What?
Oh, you said I don't need, and then we got Tales of the Ewoks instead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. What even was I gonna say?
We sure did.
You don't need.
Oh, I
Stormtroopers.
don't need a Tales of the Stormtroopers to know it was cold as fuck on Hoth, and it probably sucks to get beat by little tiny bears.
Yeah. I hope that somewhere in the Return of the Jedi, from a certain point of view, which we will get to probably in like 2029 at this rate. But I want the story of like the person at Imperial, like, fashion headquarters who's designing those stormtrooper uniforms and is like, okay, do they stop blasters? No. Do they stop lightsabers? No. Do they stop getting hit in the head with rocks? No. Like they offer no protection whatsoever in that scene with the Ewoks. And I just want to know more about like how they were designed and why they're made of paper mache.
Probably the Emperor did it for fun.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. All right. On that note, we have spoken. We've had things to say. Peace out.
Stay classy, someone. Endor.
No disintegrations.
Go out and vote.
Go out and vote.
Definitely vote.
Actually, this may come out after the election, but you know,
Democracy dies in darkness.
no, don't quote that horrible paper. Boo!
What
Jeff
do you mean?
Bezos.
Okay, the Post isn't a horrible paper. Bezos is horrible. I have a lot of friends who work at the Post.
Yeah, they should quit.
It's not the Post's fault. It's not the journalist's fault.